Dear friends, for the last few weeks, we have been looking at several reasons why the Bible must be true. Today, as we continue to examine this topic, I would like to talk about something that could be easily overlooked by many people. The Bible is packed with contents that provide detailed descriptions of things, people, situations, etc. For example, in Mark chapter 4, the author records an event that took place on the Sea of Galilee. Let me read a short passage for you. Please listen. That day, when evening came, he, meaning Jesus, said to his disciples, "Let us go over to the other side." Leaving the crowd behind, they took him along, just as he was in the boat. There were also other boats with him. A furious squall, came up, and the waves broke over the boat, so that it was nearly swamped. Jesus was in the stern, sleeping on a cushion. The disciples woke him and said to him, "Teacher, don't you care if we drown?" As you see here, Jesus was sleeping in the back of the boat when the storm came, while Jesus and his disciples were sailing across the lake. Mark, the author, says that Jesus was sleeping on a cushion. This specific piece of information is almost unnecessary when it comes to the interpretation of the passage. Meaning, it doesn't really matter. It doesn't make any difference how Jesus was sleeping when the storm came in regards to how to preach this passage, how to understand this passage. It doesn't make any difference to our systematic theology. Yet, the author provides a detailed description of the situation, that he was sleeping on a cushion. If you know the ancient literature, this is something that you just don't simply overlook. It is very interesting because in the ancient times, the writers simply do not provide such detailed descriptions. This is considered fairly modern technique of writing. If you look at the modern literature, when you read a novel or fiction, science fiction or whatnot, the author actually goes into an excessive details about the color of clothes that people are wearing, the type of food that people are eating, or the whole the atmosphere of a situation or some kind of event. This is considered a fairly modern technique of writing. Let me introduce to you another passage. When David fled from King Saul into the desert, into the wilderness, he was actually hiding in a cave. Saul and his men, the search party, made up of 3,000 men, came near the cave. And in 1 Samuel chapter 24 records that Saul went into the cave to relieve himself, meaning he had to go number 2. Let me read a passage for you, okay? He, Saul, came to the sheep pens along the way. A cave was there, and Saul went into the cave to relieve himself. David and his men were far back in the cave. Pretty much they saw everything, they saw Saul walking into the cave and relieving himself. Samuel, the writer, could have just simply omitted this whole detailed information, and he could have simply said, Saul came into the cave to rest. You see, this account is not just stories about a person named David. It is an official historical record of the nation of Israel. Yet, Samuel, the writer, goes into detail about why Saul had to come into the cave. He came in to relieve himself. He came into the cave to go number 2. Once again, this was unthinkable. Such a technique was unthinkable in the ancient world. No ancient writer would go into detail about these kind of information, these kinds of stuff. One possible explanation to this question is the writers of the Bible probably took a time machine and time traveled to come to the modern world to master the whole the modern literature technique. And then they flew back in the time machine, each of them into his or her own time, and wrote these stories utilizing the modern way of writing. I do not think this is a plausible explanation. And also, I don't think any of you would agree with this kind of possibility. So the only possible explanation is the writers of the Bible simply recorded the things as the way they are. They recorded what they saw. They simply recorded what happened. The Bible is not a fiction, in other words. It is not made up. It is not fabricated. In Matthew chapter 5, verse 18, it says, Jesus declared, I tell you the truth, until heaven and earth disappear, not the smallest letter, not the least stroke of a pen, will by any means disappear from the law until everything is accomplished. Dear friends, the Bible is true. It is the authoritative Word of God. It is errorless. It is inerrant. It is inspired by God, but written by the human hands. It is eternal truth about God. There are more than enough evidences that the Bible, that convince us that the Bible is true, that the Bible is trustworthy. Will you accept it?